with the water gun. Does that make sense when you're trying to fix a computer? Would it make sense for her to play with one of those little Tinker Toy computers if she was learning how to use the big ones? That kind of stuff doesn't make any sense. She's not walking in the way she wants to be a computer engineer or computer science, whatever she wants to work with computers. You know, there are certain things she's going to do to learn how to work on computers. Does anybody know how a river works? It kind of goes from the highest to lowest flowing. Well, the way a river works is because of the way it's flowing, and it brings fresh water all the way through. Has anybody ever seen a little pond in the middle of the road that's just stagnant and sitting there for a long time? You see green stuff growing in it, it smells like some of your rooms because you haven't cleaned them in a while, maybe. But a pool of water that just sits there, it's not really serving any purpose except keeping a lot of dead things in there. So right there, in Ephesians 4, walk in a manner worthy of your calling. We're all called to be like Christ. There are certain things that Christ tells us in here on what to do. There are rules that we got to follow. There are things that he did, like serving each other, loving each other, helping out your neighbor who might be sick. Things like that he calls us to do. The second point is Ephesians 4:17. Now I say and testify in the Lord that you must no longer walk as the Gentiles do, in the futility of their minds. So I guess a good question is, what does that mean to you all, and what's a Gentile? Someone who doesn't believe in God. And this time, the Gentiles were the people who weren't Jews. In other versions of the Bible, you might hear the word Greek, or a barbarian, somebody who does not believe in the God that we serve. So today, we can say the world. Whenever the Bible speaks of the world, it's everyone outside the Christian group, people who follow Christ, the Gentiles. We aren't supposed to follow them. Let me give you a little description of what the Gentiles do. The Gentiles, darkened in their understanding, alienated from the life of God because of their ignorance that is in them. Due to their hardness of heart, they have become callous and have given themselves up to sensuality, greed, to practice every kind of impurity. But this is not what you've learned in Christ. Those are really harsh terms, really bad description of what a person would be like. But at one point in time, we were all like that. We were all living for ourselves. We're all doing what we wanted to do solely because it's what we wanted. And in Christ, it's a life of selflessness where we have to humble ourselves. The third point is in Ephesians 5:1. Therefore, be imitators of God as beloved children and walk in love as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us, a fragrant offering and sacrifice to God. Does anybody have somebody who loves them? I hope all of you have your parents or a friend who loves you or a grandparent, like my grandmother there, who loves me. Love is something that everybody knows. Everybody knows love. Love is an action. Has anybody ever heard that song by DC Talk? They say love is a verb. It's a really old song. I shouldn't expect some of you to hear it. But it's so true that love is a verb. When you have somebody at school who everybody picks on, if you love that person, would you pick on that person? No, you'd probably go over and encourage them and help them out. Maybe try to be their friend. Love does a lot of weird things. I'm going to tell you something a little personal. I love my girlfriend. And I do stuff for her that shows I love her. Like, I make her necklaces and bracelets out of hemp. She makes me stuff like this anklet. It's a friendship bracelet. Some of you might have them on. And Our love is shown by our actions. It's not just a feeling. They say, oh, I love this person, even though I just stabbed him in the back. I love them. You know, you got to show it. You have to show it every day. Well, right here, Paul tells us, walk in love. So, if somebody is walking tall, they're going to be walking, that's different from the way the world normally does. They're going to walk in a manner worthy of the way Christ has called us to live. They're not going to walk like the world has. And thirdly, they're going to walk in love. They're going to do things that they might not want to do, but it's going to be much better for the other people around them. And it's going to be to serve the Lord. And in Ephesians 6, Paul tells us finally. Finally. That's a pretty big word. Finally. This is the end of Ephesians. I've kind of brought you all through Ephesians, 6 books in a couple minutes, which is pretty good. We didn't have to read everything. But I gave you kind of an overview because I want you guys to hear what the Word says. And Paul says, finally, Ephesians 6, verses 10 through 12. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in the strength of His might. I'm going to read that again. Be strong in the Lord and in the strength of His might. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the schemes of the devil. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over the present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in heavenly places. Therefore, take up the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand the evil day, having done all to stand firm. Those last two words, stand firm. Isn't it funny what I was just talking about this whole time? Does anybody know what the main title of my message was tonight? Walking tall. The last two words were stand firm. They kind of contradict. Like you can't stand firm while you're walking tall. You know, I'm walking, but here I'm standing. Not moving, but now I'm walking. So they seem like two different ideas, but they kind of go together because when you stand firm, you're on a position with your life, and you're not letting anything move you. Some of you are in middle school, some of you are in high school. You have a lot of tough issues at school. You have sex, drugs, alcohol, pornography, dating, you have cursing, all these things. It's like, I don't know how to deal with all this stuff. I don't know what it means to be a Christian and all that stuff. And you know who's not helping?